Hello everyone, this is Hopper here, and this is going to be my first video of this series about are you ready to become a stepdad? Let me put the aircraft on autopilot here. We won't be doing too many crazy things today. I'm usually blowing up stuff or in dog fights, wherever the case may be, but today is just going to be a nice flight. You as my co-pilot, we're just going to chat up a little bit because we have a long ways to go. So buddy, I hear that you met a lady and she has children, and you're really in love with this woman, and you're thinking about becoming a stepdad. Now for me, let me tell you where I've been. I've been married for over 20 years. And when I met my wife, she had children already by another man. The children were 4, 5, 6, and 7, so they were still small at the time. Now, there are a lot of things to consider, to take into consideration before becoming a stepdad. And it will not always be peaches and cream. So we're going to bypass that. Everything's great. It's the Brady Bunch, and the kids are well-mannered. You don't have any problems, no baby daddy problems or any of that sort. So in this series of videos, it's going to be, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty, into the weed of things, and you're going to find out that being a stepdad is actually hard if, especially if there are multiple kids and multiple baby daddies and multiple personalities. So hang on, this is going to be a wild ride. Now this is not a woman bashing video. None of my videos will ever be women bashing videos. But since I am a man, I will be a little harder on the man because I think men are supposed to be leaders in society. So it's not really a man bashing channel either. It's just me as a Gen Xer. I've been through a lot, seen a lot. And with the younger generation, I just want to share my thoughts and ideas and what I've been through. So I do believe it takes a village sometimes to raise children into adulthood, and there's been many instances where, you know, a man, a stepdad, became a stepdad and was able to impact the children's life in a positive way. And you know, there are many thousands, millions of examples where the stepchildren absolutely love their stepdad or step-parent, and you know, not so much with their natural parent because that person really dropped the ball. I would like to say that being a single mom, as we know, is very stressful. Society looks at you very differently when you're a single woman with multiple children, especially if there are multiple baby daddies. So that alone is stressful for a woman. Because of that stress, when you do meet a woman like that and you interact with her and you're a positive male in her life where you're willing to help her and the children, you will see her just light up and you can just see the stress just go away. So consider that too. You know, a woman that's under stress with multiple children, that could negatively impact, you know, the way the child will grow up and operate in the world. You're probably saying, well, heck, that doesn't, you know, that won't affect me, this woman and her children and all, whatever the case may be. But you have to realize these children will grow up and interact with people that you know and love. You know what I mean? So you want the people that you interact with or your loved one interact with, for that to be a positive experience. You know what I mean? So even though it doesn't affect you right now, when those children grow up, it could affect your children, or you know, your future grandchildren, or the people that you love. So keep that into account too. Okay, here are some things to consider when deciding to become a stepdad. So, is the dad in the picture, and what type of person is he? Was she married to this man? What age did they meet and start having children? Are the kids well-mannered? Does she expect you to discipline the children in the future? How does she discipline the children? Are the kids respectful? One thing to look out for is her house clean. How is she with her parents? Is her dad in her life? And if so, does she have daddy issues? How is she with money? Does she spend, or is she able to save and budget? How many children does she have with how many baby daddies? So in this video series, we're just going to assume that it's not the Brady Bunch. We're going to assume that the kids are going to have behavioral issues, and we're going to assume that the dad is a POS, and we're going to assume that she didn't have a good relationship with her mom or dad, or it wasn't a perfect relationship. And I'm only going this route because, you know, if everything went hunky-dory, this would be a pretty short video, right? So we're going to get into the weeds, into the nitty-gritty, into all the problems that you can face with all those issues I just mentioned as a stepdad. So let's answer one of these questions here. So how many children and how many baby daddies are involved? Now, my reasoning behind this is, if there are multiple baby daddies with multiple children, then that tells me that there's a decision-making process that is broken within this woman. Now, that could be caused by a number of different things. That doesn't necessarily make her a bad person, but you have to realize that a lot of these women have children when they're young, right? So if she doesn't have a positive male role model in her life, then she may not know how to choose the right man for her. If she doesn't have a good relationship with her dad, then, you know, if her dad's not around to help guide her, then she's probably most likely going to choose the wrong man. Also, when women are young, they're very gullible, so older men may take advantage of this, or younger slick men may tell the woman exactly what she wants to hear, make her fall in love, and blah blah blah, and next thing you know, the babies are coming. So my advice to you, as a young man thinking about getting into this relationship, is to condom up. Because if you're a young guy, ambitions, goals, and you want to get ahead, and she sees that, then she will most likely get pregnant again. So my advice to you is to always condom up, right? Because you want to be able to maneuver or make decisions without having a natural child involved. And that goes for a woman who has children that was married. You know what I mean? She can say, oh, this is a great man, I love him, blah blah blah, he has a great future for him, and I can see myself with him. So, you know, like I told you before, make sure you condom up, guys. Don't go out there and have unprotected sex, because before you know it, your baby will have siblings, and you'll be another baby daddy without being married. Also, you have to realize that, say for instance, if the woman has babies by the same guy, so you're looking at 2, 3, 4 kids, you have to realize too, if she's young and gullible and he's telling her everything that she wants to hear, marriage down the road, house, and all that stuff. And I've heard guys say this before, so this is nothing new. Me as a male, I've heard it. So in this case, the woman fell for the okie doke, right? So in some of those guys' minds, they don't want this woman to be with anyone else. They consider her his property, so what they'll do is they'll load the woman up with a bunch of kids, hoping that no one else will date this woman, so she can be raising these children by herself, and maybe they can stop over anytime they want to and spit that game or whatever, and next thing you know, well, the woman doesn't have another male in her life or another boyfriend or husband, so it's just easier for that guy to come in and do whatever he needs to do. Because in his mind, he's saying, no one's going to date her. She has too many children. Who wants to deal with that? So women, this is the deal. Do not have children by men that can't take care of the children that you already have, right? And make them prove to you that they can take care of you and protect you. Look for those signs also. Just don't fall for the lip service, because there's lots of lip service out there. Okay, let's move on. Are the kids well mannered? When you interact with these kids, are they standoffish? Do they look at you funny? When you talk to them, are they disrespectful? Also, does the mom have to yell at the kids constantly or tell them to do things multiple times? This constant yelling tells me that there are some discipline issues and the kids are hard-headed. What are the schools saying about their behaviors? Is the mom getting constant reports about their behaviors in school? And how does she handle those? Does she take up for the child? Does she actually try to investigate what's going on? Because you and I know not all schools are good, and you can't automatically blame the child for their behaviors in the school. Maybe the child may be getting picked on or bullied, and the child is just fighting back to protect him or herself. So how does she do some investigations into the situation? Does she ask you your opinion, and what do you think? What are some of these behaviors? Are there normal kid behaviors? Sometimes being hard-headed. No kid is perfect. Nobody's perfect. But what are the behaviors are you observing? Are you observing a kid that constantly lies, or steals, or is sneaky, or is disrespectful? Whatever you do as a stepdad, please look at all of these issues, because right now the children are small. But if these behaviors aren't corrected as they move into puberty and teenagehood, you're going to be in for a wild ride. So next question, is her dad in the picture, and how is her relationship with her dad? I've noticed that the women that have multiple babies by multiple men usually don't have a good male role model in their life, or has a poor relationship with their dad. So in this case, I can see why this woman would have issues choosing men, because her dad was not a good role model. Her dad was cheated on their mom multiple times, and when the dad eventually left the mom, he was basically out of this woman's life. So of course, a young woman growing up who needed a father figure in her life didn't have one, so what she did was gravitate to basically a bum. And when the woman is young and gravitate to what I call predators, then that's when the babies come. That's when the violence come. That's when the possessiveness come, as the woman matures and tries to get out of a bad situation. So to make a long story short, this lady's dad didn't help her. So while she was in the thick of the violence, trying to take care of the children and basically running for her life, as with any woman would say, hey dad, can you help me? This guy is violent, he's after me, I just need your help, protection, or whatever. His response, well, you made those decisions, you made your bed, so now lie in it. Basically, I can't help you. So in my opinion, this is basically BS, because as a father, you should protect your children. You can't say, well, now I can understand if she was doing the same thing over and over and over again, the dad was stepping in saying, hey daughter, if I was you, I would do this. If I was you, I would do that. And then she would go not listen to your advice and go back and do the exact same thing. But in this case, that wasn't it. He basically was not an alpha male, and he basically didn't want to help. And for me as a male with children, I just don't understand that. Well, anyway, let's move on to the next topic. Can you afford to be a stepdad? Now, we know children are expensive. So as a stepdad, when you step in, you're assuming those financial responsibilities as well. So you may be paying more for school lunches, you may be paying more for clothes, you will be paying for, hospital visits, deductibles, things like that, utilities, everything goes up, food. So you have to be willing to say, hey, look, when I take on the responsibilities of being a stepdad, I also take on the financial responsibilities of being a stepdad. So you may have to get up early and take kids to school, pick them up, and things of that nature. Also, it could be a slap in the face when you're sacrificing and spending money and making sure the children are okay and you're being disrespected by the children. So that'll make you feel salty as well. So make sure this is what you want before becoming a stepdad. Okay, so let's assume you're dating. There are no children involved. You're kind of scoping out what's going on. She has a good heart. The kids are rough, but she's doing her thing, disciplining the kids and things like that. And so far, you're hanging in there. So let's discuss the children's father or daddies. Now, one of the questions I would ask myself is he a positive male role model in their lives? I'm a firm believer in genetics, and I believe that genetics can be passed down from the parents to the children. For example, athletes can pass down those traits to their children. A parent that are really good in math geniuses, they can pass down those traits or whatever. We all know that. On the opposite end, if the dad is a thug, thief, abuser, drug user, blah, 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 those traits can also be passed down to the child. So as you're dating this woman, try to find out as much as you can about the father or fathers of these children, because that could become a major factor into whether you stay or not. Also, when she's around these men, how is her personality? Is she overly friendly? Does she basically want him to go away once he picks up the children to see the children? Just kind of look at those red flags. I know when I was dating a woman with children and we would drop off the children, because of course he didn't have a car. While we were dating in the beginning, I would always observe the interactions. Is she smiling a lot? Are they too overly friendly? Does she laugh, giggle, get too close, get into his personal space? So observe all those behaviors. Don't be so blinded by love that you will ignore those behaviors and get burned in the long run. Okay, let's go back to genetics. Is the father a productive citizen, or would you consider him low moral character? Low moral character means drug use, abusive, thievery, lying, things of that nature. The guy can have a good moral character and be a bad father, but it's a whole different level if the guy is just out of control, creating chaos in the community with multiple baby mamas. Also, he may get jealous of you and her relationship and try to intervene by getting the kids to turn against you. So see if he's that sort of person, because that could be a big problem for you. Seems to me blood is always thicker than water. Now, some children are smart enough to decide that, hey, my stepdad is much better than my natural dad, and I'm not going to have, my stepdad who takes care of me deal with what the BS for my natural dad. I've seen that before too. So also take that into account. Some kids are very smart and very observant. So if the kid really loves you and looks out for you and say, you know what, sorry stepdad, but my natural dad is basically a dick, and I'll be talking to him about that. I've heard of, I shouldn't say heard, I've seen kids actually defend their stepdad against the natural dad because the natural dad was a piece of shit, and the kid realized that. The woman that you're with, does she protect you? Meaning, does she expect you to fight this guy every 5 minutes because he says something or does something stupid? Or does she act as a shield to keep you out of trouble? For example, if I met a woman that wanted me to argue and fight with baby daddies, when it could be avoided, I'm not going to do it. Now, if the guy is showing up unannounced, just being a general dick about things, yes, then I'm going to get involved. You know what I mean? But if the relationship with her and him is the way it's supposed to be, she should always be protecting you, because if you're protected and you're earning and you're protecting her, then she should see that and figure out that if something happens to you, that pretty much puts her in peril also. So it's when you survive, she survives. I dated a woman at one point, and I've been wrestling. I was a wrestler since I could walk. I'm a martial artist. I have a black belt in this and a brown belt in that, and I can defend myself. So I met a woman who would purposely try to start fights for some reason, so she thought I was going to beat people up for, and I'm not going to do that. I have too much to lose, just like you do. So be wary of that. So with that being the case, are there restraining orders involved to keep him at bay? Does she call the police? The police can be your friend if used in the right way. It also creates a paper trail. Does she record things to be used later in court? So things like that. Is she documenting things? Things like that to protect you shows me that she's looking out for you and she loves you and she's looking out for your best interests. If she's like, no, don't, I'm not going to call the police. I don't want to get him in trouble. Oh, he's just a little confused. He's really a good guy. I don't want to put my baby daddy in jail. If that's the case, and if you say something, she bites your head off. Well, that's my baby daddy. You know what I mean? He really isn't that way. I would highly consider leaving. It's not worth you getting in trouble or having the headaches of that situation. Now, if you screw up and didn't condom up and you have a natural child involved, that's a whole different thing. You have to stick around because you have to protect your child, right? So you're tied to this lady forever when you have a natural children. That's child. So that's why I say it's so important to condom up at the beginning. So in this case, the baby daddy was violent, as in fist fighting, kicking, destroying things, stealing, drug use, hanging around strange people, police being called, couldn't hold a job. You know the drill. So in this case, when a woman has small children and she's in an abusive relationship, most of the time they'll try to go, to someone that's going to help. So in this case, this particular lady went to her mom and said, "Hey, Mom, he's violent, please keep him away from the home. If he comes here, call the police. Do not let him stay." So, of course, I'm telling this story because the mom didn't listen. The mom was a religious woman, basically saying, praise Jesus, God to handle it. Oh, put it in the hands of God, Jesus, blah, blah, blah. So when the guy would show up, he knew this. He's a manipulator. He would tell the mom, I've been saved. I feel good. You know what I mean? We can go to church next week. And they get there and say a little prayer, hallelujah. Next thing you know, the woman walks home after work. He's sitting in the living room. And next thing you know, there's a fight. Furniture's getting broken. People, police being called. Just general chaos when the mother should actually listen to the daughter if there are issues like that. And also, God gave you common sense. Don't rely on God for everything. Prayers is great, but they don't always work. You still have to pick up the phone, call the police, protect yourself, do the things you need to do. So mom was of no help. Let's go back to being a stepdad. Usually what I found was that most men that beat up women do not like to fight other men. So when I was involved in this situation, they were, uh, you know, they weren't together for at least 2 to 3 years. So when I got involved, I would drive around with her in my car and we would do things together. And, we can't always take kids around. So we would drop the kids off where he lived because, of course, he didn't have a car to pick them up. And I never had a problem, which was kind of surprising considering how violent he was. So the kids were small, take the kids out, walk them to the house. I observed her interactions. I observed his interactions. Nothing really stood out as being a problem. He never approached me. Now, with that being the case, don't always depend on things not happening. Always be prepared to defend yourself. You know what I mean? Which means have a plan to, if he comes after you, you have to defend yourself, right? I'm not going to say, do what you need to do to defend yourself and her. That means make sure you're not wearing flip-flops or skinny jeans or, your pants hanging off your butt till you're getting beat down by some dude because he doesn't want you with his ex-girlfriend. So with me, I already knew how to fight anyway. I always wore, boots so if I have to stomp someone out. I'm not wearing this soft, soled tennis shoes. But I never had a problem. Now, this particular man was violent, right? While they were together, the police was called multiple times, multiple reports. Protective orders were in place, so there was a paper trail of this guy. He was in and out of trouble since the age of 14. So what happened in this case, this man broke into someone's house, shot a person over 50 or $100, boom, gets life in prison. For me, that's great because, well, it wasn't great that he had to kill a guy to get locked up, but at least it got him out of my hair. Now, what I do hate is that someone had to die before they finally locked this guy up. So I'll never understand the laws in this country because no one should have to die, especially if this guy has a rap sheet as long as my arm and nothing's being done. So you ignore that he beats up women, that he sells drugs, that he chases women through homes with butcher knives, not taking care of his children, not paying child support, but someone has to die before they finally do something. And to me, that is crazy. So while we're on the topic of learning how to fight, learning how to defend yourself, they will come into play in the next video. Why that is so important that you know how to defend yourself, especially in your own home. With that being said, with the dad being so violent and willing to just shoot someone, those same traits can be passed to the children. So I want you to keep that in mind. Now, on the flip side of that, if the guy is just a poor father, he just doesn't want to hang around the children or he's too busy, then, that's a problem, but it's not a huge problem because he really has no influence over the kid's life and you'll be able to exert more influence over the children in a positive way. But what I mean by the dad, is he a hard worker? He's not involved in chaos or problems with the law. I know a guy, this guy was a hell of a salesperson. I mean, literally, he could sell ice to an Eskimo. He had no problem picking up the phone, calling people. He had no problems knocking on doors. And he actually did pretty good. He was a hard worker. So his child was the exact same way, even though, the father had no influence in his life. So it can go both ways too. If the dad is very smart or whatever, it can be passed down to the kid. So also look at the positives and the negatives. All right, so let me give the women some advice. if you're a young woman, please do not have children by men that you barely know, or that cannot take care of you, or have not proven themselves to be a good father or companion. Do not have children because they want children. That's probably one of the worst things you can do. Do not have children by men who say, I want a child. Do not have children by men that already has multiple baby mamas and multiple children by these women. Because if they're not taking care of those children, they're really not going to take care of the child that you have with him. Stay away from men whose mothers are always interfering or coddling their sons. That does not help in raising a functioning adult alpha male. If the mother's always coddling, if the mother's always protecting him, if the mother doesn't, sometimes even the grandmother doesn't even want to be involved with the child. So look at all those things before you decide to have a child with a man. And if it was me, I would always marry before you carry. If you do happen to have a child with this man, use protection. Don't keep having multiple children by this man. If he's not stepping up to the plate and doing what he's supposed to do as a father or as a husband, don't have children by him. It's crazy, because you'll be stuck doing all the work. Other good men will look at you and like, do I really want to get involved in this? So, and a lot of those dysfunctional men know that if they load you up with children, a good man may not come your way, because they may not want to be responsible for raising another man's child, especially if that man is involved in creating havoc. So the next question that should be answered is, how does she discipline her children? Does she have to constantly yell at the kids? What does she do for discipline? Does she spank them a lot? Does she set them in timeout? Does she take away things? How does she handle disciplining those children? Does she expect you to discipline them? Me personally, I would never put my hands on another man's child. It just wouldn't happen. Now, if the child is disrespectful or decide to throw something at me like a toy or whatever, then we're going to set you in a timeout a little bit. We're going to discuss your behaviors. I'm going to discuss it with your mom. We'll see what happens. But for me personally, I would never ever put my hands on another man's child. If you do that, and if the father's still in the picture, you could have a whole host of problems. And also, the way the court systems and the juvenile system is as far as protecting children, they're going to believe the child. They're going to believe the absent parent. So you have so much to lose if they say, you know what? You hit this kid, you left a mark, child abuse or whatever. You can find yourself in a whole lot of trouble, or even in jail for something just as innocent as, disciplining a child. So, in my opinion, I would never put my hands on a child or someone else's child. So the next question is, when you first meet and you go over to her home, how is her house? If there are multiple children, it may be hard. Of course, kids are messy. Even teenagers are messy. Hell, even adults are messy at times. But if you walk into the home and there's clothes strewn all over the place, there's food on the floor, there's things that just look like total chaos, broken things. If you go into the bathroom, there's turds and pee on the toilet, things like that. Man, if you're somewhat of a normal person, want a clean house and like things are intact and not broken, and just even making up a bed is things like that, then being a stepdad probably isn't for you. So we're going to end this video here. The main things I wanted to you to take away from this video is, there are a lot of things to consider when becoming a stepdad. Kind of review those questions. Ask people that are step parents already. Every situation is different. No one shoe fits all. But what I'm telling you is the worst case scenario of things. And that's it. Thanks. Bye.